The first item on the small list are digital cameras. Now, cameras are by far one of the best selling items on eBay. And the reason why I'm going to put cameras on the list is because 99% of eBay resellers do not know that cameras sell really well. We all believe that in the age of phones and big industrial sized cameras, that these little small pocket cameras do not sell. But for whatever reason, and I'm going to be honest, I do not really know that reason, these cameras sell really, really well. People like to bring them on vacations. People like to use them as an alternative to their phone. They hook up to an SD card that you can carry around with you, and they go for a lot of money. There are a lot of brands out there that you're gonna be looking for. You wanna look for Canon, you wanna look for Nikon, you wanna look for Olympus, you wanna look for, this is a Samsung camera, so be on the lookout for Samsung because they also make good cameras. Sony Cybershots, Canon PowerShots, Coolpixes. There are tons of little cameras like this that go for a lot of money on eBay, and you can find these pretty much anywhere. I find cameras like these all the time at thrift stores, yard sales, Facebook Marketplace. Pretty much every single home in America has at least one of these cameras tucked away in some kind of drawer, so all you gotta do is go look for them. Digital cameras have a very wide range of pricing. There are cameras that won't go for $10 shipped, and there are some cameras that go for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. The most expensive camera I've ever sold was for $400. I'll leave a screenshot right here, and there are tons and tons of cameras that go for that $50 to $100 range that you can find pretty consistently if you're looking for them. Now, even though the majority of resellers don't really know about cameras, the small percent that do definitely know about cameras. So you're going to be facing a lot of competition when it comes to flea markets and Facebook Marketplace. So like I say, with most of these items, when you're going to be finding these on Facebook or at yard sales, you want to make sure that you are getting there first. You want to make sure that you're making the highest offers, and you want to make sure you're picking up as many of these as possible. Now, you may be thinking that with these going for a lot of money and also being very small, there just has to be something wrong with selling these, either a low sell-through rate or a high return rate. And to be honest, there's none of that. The return rate for cameras are pretty typical for electronic, between that 3 to 5%, which is always going to be adjusted for when you are selling on eBay. You always have to make sure you're accounting for all those returns, and these don't really have an above average return rate, so you don't really have to worry about that. And with the sell-through rate, these have consistently one of the highest sell-through rates across all categories on eBay. Most of the higher end cameras like Canon PowerShots and Coolpixes are going to have over a 1, sometimes up to 2, 3, 500% sell-through rate. So you don't have to worry about these sitting in your store. The average time it takes for a camera to leave my store once I list it is about 6 days. So whenever I get cameras, there is a good chance that it's going to sell before the week is over. Next up on the list are brand new with tags underwear from places like Ross, TJ Maxx, Marshall. I got this at Burlington. Now, these are a fantastic way to make extra money in your reselling business because they are brand new, so you don't have to worry about people returning it because the item is used, of course. And also, this country is full of Rosses and TJ Maxxes in Burlington, so you're always going to be having at least a couple of those stores you can go to look for this valuable inventory. Now, with all items that you get from retail arbitrage, there is a little bit of a sell-through rate and a margin problem. It is very common to not double or triple your money when it comes to retail arbitrage. It is still possible, however, it's a little bit less frequent because we are paying a premium from buying it at a retail store as opposed to buying it from a yard sale or a thrift store. But those trade-offs are, like I said earlier, very low return rate, and also there's a wide variety of stores that you can choose from. And also, these things are very easy to ship because they are brand new. I can just simply put this in a poly bag. Don't have to worry about getting boxes. Don't have to worry about buying bubble wrap. This just goes in a padded envelope and it is good to go. Certain brands you're going to be looking for are Nike. Unlike with other categories, there isn't really a specific brand you are looking for, because 99% of the underwears you're going to find at Ross are not going to be worth flipping. But there are still some guidelines you can follow. Things like Hanes or Gap or Polo aren't really going to be brands that are going to be sellable on eBay, especially for the semi-high prices that you're going to be paying at places like Ross. The brand here is Nike, which of course Nike is a fantastic brand. Usually when I find underwears or socks or any kind of clothing to resell from Ross, it is usually something like Nike or Adidas or Jordan, but there are still some other sneaky brands that slip through the cracks and end up on the Ross shelf that you can easily buy and flip. Our third item on the list are any kind of TV or streaming devices. For this example, I have a Amazon Fire Stick. I got this at a thrift store for only $5 and I have it listed for $30 shipped. So when this sells, it's gonna give me a nice $18, $19 profit, which is really good. You don't just have to limit yourself with this brand. You probably have seen Apple TVs, those little cube circle things with the remote. Also, Roku makes a few models that sell really well. Usually used won't sell as well unless it is a higher end series for the brand, but you can still find a lot of sealed products at thrift stores and especially at yard sales. People will buy these and just never use them, or they got them as a gift and then they're going to be selling them at yard sales for $5, which is where we come in, and we're able to sell them for that $30, $50, sometimes even $100 range. Apple TV has a few models that go for over $100, so you got to be on the lookout for those. And most of the time, thrift stores will believe it is just the lowest end model and will sell it for $5. Definitely be on the lookout for accessories that go for things like these. The most famous example are Roku remotes. Roku remotes can do really well if you know what kind of models you're looking for. Every single Roku device, every single Roku streaming device needs to be paired with some kind of remote, so people are always on the lookout for them. But your standard Roku remote is just not going to be resellable. You need to be looking for Roku remotes that have a voice activated remote, and you can just look that up and see what kind of models have that. But even if you find this piece, the actual streaming devices, you can then sell those for $10 to $15 plus shipping. And usually at yard sales, they'll charge you no more than $1. But yes, still make sure to look out for the new unboxed ones, because those are the ones that are gonna go for a lot of money. Next up on the list are old vintage toys. I'm sure you all know what it is. This is a little Bop It. We all played with Bop Its as a kid. This one was made in 2002, so it is just beyond that vintage mark, and people love to pay premium prices for vintage products. You can see this is not like the normal Bop It. There's a few extra doohickeys here. Okay, this thing can shut up now. Obviously, vintage toys are a mega category on eBay, and with that comes a lot of resellers who want to take advantage of that and kind of weed people out. So you need to do your due diligence. Every single thrift store has a wall of toys and games that you can sift through, and I recommend, if you want to get into the toy business for eBay reselling, go through the toy section and look up every single thing you see. I don't care if it's something you've looked up before. I don't care if it looks like a piece of Chinese garbage. You want to look up everything, and it's not because I want you to find everything that's in that aisle. I want you to do it because I want you to understand just the amount of reps you're going to have to do to succeed in this business. A lot of people have this level of arrogance where they know what is resellable, what is valuable, and they walk past things every single day. And this Bop It is a very clear example. I went yard selling the other day, and there were hundreds and hundreds of other resellers just like me looking for stuff to flip online. And while people were haggling over little pieces of jewelry and CDs, I just swooped in, paid $1 for this, and it sells on eBay for about $20 plus shipping. You have to have some level of humility in this business if you want to succeed, and the toy aisle is the best way to gain it, because there are probably at least 1,000 pieces of toys in a average thrift store aisle. So it is going to take you maybe 1 to 2 hours to actually go through all this stuff. But at the end, you're gonna know what has value. You're gonna realize that most plushies don't, unless it's a very specific brand. You're gonna find out that older toys that were made in the 80s and 90s definitely go for a lot more. You're gonna know what brands really sell well. You're gonna know what characters sell really well. You're gonna learn how big of a difference the size of the toys matter when it comes to reselling. You're just going to learn a lot of things about reselling, and the toy aisle is the best way to learn it. Last up on our small list are watches. I have these two examples, this regular old wristwatch and also this Fitbit, anything that pretty much goes on the wrist. Now, watches are going to be a great addition to your sourcing list because you can find them pretty much anywhere from yard sales, Facebook, thrift stores, what have you, especially at things like flea markets. If you want to get into online arbitrage and start buying lots off of eBay to sell individually back onto eBay, watches are probably the best way to get into it because there are just so many watches, and people just love putting up 100, 50, 200 watch lots off eBay, and you can go in and sell them individually. There are a lot of people who buy watches not because of the brand or because of how expensive it is. They buy it just because they know it will go well with a certain outfit. They don't really care way too much. Obviously, there are people who do, but pretty much any watch that is high quality, that is made well, is going to have some kind of value, whether you sell it individually for $20, $25 on eBay, or if you relot it and put it back onto eBay, or you can sell it live on Whatnot, or you can sell it on Facebook or at a flea market, or even at your own yard sale. And as for Fitbits, and other kind of watches like smartwatches, Apple watches, any kind of just smart wrist technology. They can go for some good money. I picked this up at a yard sale for only $3 and it goes for around $40 plus shipping on eBay. You just want to make sure that it works because some of the screens might be cracked, some of the things might be broken. So you just got to make sure that it works, that it turns on when you're at the thrift store. If it has a charger, make sure that it works. I'm able to find Fitbits pretty frequently at the watches section of the thrift store. They'll usually just put this in the same area, and you can definitely find Fitbits that go for over $100 depending on the model, but there are some Fitbits that go for absolutely nothing, so you just got to make sure to check the model number.